As long as man has walked and traveled on the surface of the earth, he has used signs and markers to guide himself and others on the paths that he travels. A pile of stones beside the trail, a notch in a tree, or painted symbols that have withstood the weathering of hundreds of years. For centuries, these silent guides were adequate. Man's travels were slow-paced and limited to his physical stamina or the endurance of his horse. The coming of the horseless carriage changed all that. Man could now travel farther in one day than his forefathers could in a week. The horseless carriage soon became the automobile, with a dependable engine that could run all day. We added windshields, tops, and doors to provide protection in all kinds of weather. Suddenly, our sign language was no longer adequate. The signs were too small to be read or even noticed from behind the wheel of an automobile traveling at the high speed of 30 to 40 miles per hour. We added lights so that our roadway travels were no longer restricted to daylight hours. And at nighttime, our silent guides were not only silent, they were practically invisible. The automobile industry responded to public demands for larger, more powerful, and faster vehicles, with improved lighting systems that increased nighttime travel. Highway and transportation engineers met the challenge of designing and building a planned network of improved roads that spread across the nation and allowed us to drive to almost any point in the country. The number of vehicles increased dramatically, as did the miles traveled. With all of our progress, death and injury on our highways doubled, redoubled, and kept increasing at an alarming rate. Highway safety became a concern, and it was obvious that driver safety depended largely on communicating roadway information to drivers so they could anticipate and react to road hazards and changes in the road ahead. New signing concepts were adopted and continually modified as more became known about the science of signing. We increased the size of signs. When nighttime travel increased, we utilized the principle of light refraction, using glass buttons on signs that could return light directly back to the source. These early retroreflective materials went through many improvements that improved the conspicuity, legibility, and all-weather performance of our signs. And today, continued technical improvements provide the signing concepts that the traffic officials demand and the motorists need for safe, convenient travel. We've come a long way from the pile of stones, the notch in the tree, but we still have over 50,000 deaths on our highways and streets every year. Over 50,000 men, women, and children killed each year. And added to this, over 140,000 permanent impairment injuries, 1,800,000 disabling injuries, and extensive property damage. And the cost in the United States each year averages over $24 billion. Why? One of the reasons is our failure to provide adequate information to motorists because of defective, non-standard, and in some cases, missing signs. Surveys made in counties in various parts of the country have shown that most of the traffic control devices do not conform to the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices. They are non-uniform in size, shape, color, placement, and often far exceed the expected warranty life. This fact has to bring up the question as to whether we're utilizing our modern signing concepts and materials to their fullest potential for motorist safety and accident prevention. Billions of dollars are spent each year in providing protective devices to help motorists survive accidents, to provide greater safety while the accidents are occurring. Shouldn't we put a greater effort toward prevention of the accident happening in the first place? In aviation, the industry and government spend billions on preventing accidents, and they have an outstanding safety record. Pilots operate in a more controlled environment, under strict guidelines, with the most modern safety aids available to them and the air traffic controllers. But can you imagine what would happen if every pilot took off whenever and from wherever he wanted without any regard for flight plans or other air traffic? Actually, that's what the land traveler does. He's completely on his own. There's no reserved path of travel. The motorist joins a mass of moving vehicles on a relatively small and restricted strip of roadway with thousands of other vehicles, with no driver knowing the destination, intent, or driving capabilities of any of the others. Some vehicles are coming toward him. Some are following him. And some may come from the side. The only things that the land traveler can rely on for guidance and safe travel are his own and other motorists' ability and alertness, his views of the roadway, and the traffic control devices that are designed to safely guide him both day and night. At nighttime, when driving is most hazardous, it's even more critical that we provide the most modern and effective guidance systems that modern technology has to offer. This has been proven by the fact that over 50% of all traffic fatalities occur at nighttime, when only 1/3 of our traffic occurs. And over 70% of these nighttime accidents occur on rural two-lane roadways. It is significant that these same roadways have the lowest level of compliance to the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices. Fatalities and injuries are entered into the statistics. But there's no way that we can know how many lives have been saved by signs that do conform to uniform standards. Usually several factors contribute to an accident: speed, weather conditions, driver condition, road markings. But until recently, non-uniform, defective, or missing traffic control devices were seldom blamed. Too often, the driver behind the wheel was blamed for the accident. Times have changed. The rapid rise in the number and size of tort liability claims against states, counties, cities, and townships is causing serious concern among local officials. More governments are being sued as their protective shield of sovereign immunity is being eroded or lost.
I'd like to call the meeting to order. Before we get into the meeting, I'd like to tell our visitors that the primary purpose of this meeting is to consider what we can do to help solve the problems created by the liability claims that are being filed against the county. We are faced with potential large judgments and settlements that are consuming tax dollars. we are also faced with insurance rates that are unaffordable. Will the Secretary please call the roll?
Let's hear from some of the people who are involved with these problems or are responsible for the guidance and safety of the motorists. One of the people taking part in this meeting is a local insurance agent.
I've been handling the county's insurance account for several years. About 2,800 counties like ours have road jurisdiction, which is the source of most tort liability claims. The claims against county governments have increased 171% in just 5 years. So it's only natural that property and liability insurance premiums have increased to a level where states, counties, and municipalities are feeling the heavy burden placed on taxpayers and budgets. Actually, we're at a point right now where there's no way that I could continue to sell this county the total insurance package they have had in the past. What I'm going to recommend is that they establish a risk management program. This program is based on an upgrading of traffic control devices in order to make our roads safer and help to reduce accidents and tort liability claims against the county. If the county implements this risk management system, my company can offer an insurance program at rates they can afford. The system of risk management, as a partial or complete substitute for insurance, is going to call for a basic 3-phase program. The first step is identification of sign deficiencies that are or could be responsible for tort liability claims. This begins with an inventory. Now, if we're going to manage our signing program, we first must know what we have and what hazards exist. The second step is taking corrective action to eliminate these sign deficiencies and install needed signs at those locations where none now exist. And the third phase is in establishing an ongoing program of sign inventory and replacement. The system of risk management is a balancing of the cost of insurance against the cost of corrective action.
Let's hear the opinion of the county attorney.
We've been besieged with lawsuits, and a large share of them have been related to traffic control devices. We no longer can hide under the protective shroud of sovereign immunity, and I don't think there's much question but what we're going to have to be self-insured. If we're going into a risk management program, we'd better get a handle on identifying and correcting our problems. Every substandard traffic control device on the roadways under our jurisdiction makes us vulnerable to a potential tort liability suit. As for me, I'd rather see money spent in the prevention of accidents, fatalities, and injuries, rather than in the courtroom after a tragedy has occurred, or in out-of-court settlements, as usually occurs in tort liability cases. I'd like to see us set up a risk management committee to start immediate action. Everyone here will have to cooperate, and a good share of the implementation will be in the hands of the county engineer. I'd like to hear from him.
As county engineer, I can tell you that the tools I need are available. What I also need is the support of the other people responsible for traffic safety. We definitely need to inventory our signs with a system that we can keep up to date. Frankly, right now, I don't have any idea of how many signs we have. I don't know how many are defective, how many don't conform to the manual of traffic control devices, or how many of them are long past the expected warranty life and plain worn out. It's difficult to try to run any business without an inventory. And when you think of hundreds of types of signs spread out over hundreds of miles of rural roads and highways in our county, there's no way to properly manage a signing program without a continuous, comprehensive, and systematic inventory. I'm glad to see a representative of the Governor's Highway Safety Committee at our meeting tonight so that we can learn of additional funding available to assist us in doing the job.
I'm glad to see the interest of these people in highway safety and the risk management program. The state not only has funding to support them in getting their inventory taken, but also there are other funds available to help them get all of their signs updated.
Thank you, Mr. O'Sullivan, for being with us this evening. You know, you wouldn't think that something like traffic signs that we see every day and sort of take for granted could be so important. They not only represent a major investment, but to our county, effective signs provide a means to make our roads safer, and at the same time, they protect us against tort liability claims and lawsuits. Claims against us are really getting out of hand. So let's get our program moving and working so that we can get on to other matters. I would like to entertain a motion at this time that we establish a sign inventory and replacement program and direct our engineers to submit a proposal to do so immediately.
Meetings like this are taking place throughout the country. Tort liability, outdated signs, defective signs, missing signs, non-uniform signs, deaths, injury, and property loss on our roadways. We've come a long way, but we still have a long way to go in taking advantages of the management concepts that are available right now that could help to solve the problems of people concerned with transportation safety. In some respects, the marking of roads was considered a good neighbor policy that provided guidance to strangers unfamiliar with the area. The fact is, we all need positive guidance on every roadway, familiar or not. The silent guides of earlier years are no longer adequate to meet today's needs. The safety of the public demands that today's traffic control devices be uniform, standard, effective, and make use of the latest technical advances. After all, traffic control devices are the medium through which people concerned with and responsible for transportation safety communicate with the driver, providing them with the necessary information and guidance for safety on the highway. The positive signs of life.